Much. Well, in studio now to discuss this and much more, it's our panel. Happy New Year to both of you guys. Thank you for coming in. Maria, I know this isn't the most important element of what Evan was just discussing, but like the timing of the release of the video and the deposition in general, like I'm fairly cynical at this stage in my Washington career, but like New Year's Eve, late afternoon, New Year's Eve, do you think that was intentional?
A little bit. A little bit. Look, I think that this is yet another effort to kind of cover up from all of the other things that the Trump administration wants to distract from. Because I think what's clear from both the video as well as the transcript is that Jack Smith followed all the protocols. He followed all of the legal laws and things that he needed to follow in the case that he prosecuted against Donald Trump. And what is most interesting to me, and I think really is merits underscoring, is that all of the evidence, all of the people that spoke during this case for Jack Smith were not Democrats. They were not progressives. They were President Trump's allies. They were Republicans. They were conservatives who knew every single thing that President Trump was trying to do. And many of them even said what he is trying to do is illegal. He is trying to overturn a fair and legitimate election. And so I think that that is damning for the administration. I think that that will continue to underscore for the American people exactly what Trump tried to do in 2020, which I don't think any of us should forget. And I think going into the 2026 midterm elections, it certainly is not going to be the number one issue that voters vote on, but I think it will sort of underlie the kind of issues that voters have soured on Trump for, which is he doesn't care about affordability. He doesn't care about families' bottom lines. He doesn't care about our democracy. He doesn't care about, trying to really make ends meet and bringing down prices, which is what he promised during the campaign. So I think all of that is going to be really helpful for Democrats going into the 2026 midterm elections.
The issue itself, Jack Smith in particular, became kind of a red team, blue team thing a long time ago, for better or worse, and I would argue the latter. But what was interesting about reading the deposition or seeing some of the video is wondering, does this make people see Jack Smith through a new light? You are a lawyer. You have significant expertise in this space. What was your read on Jack Smith coming out of this?
It's puzzling that House Republicans would call him to testify, because if you recall a year ago, we got the special counsel report, which was required by regulation. So now you've given Jack Smith two opportunities to publicly state why he believed he had cases and evidence that are beyond a reasonable doubt would have convicted Donald Trump. And normally you would never hear this from a prosecutor. If a case is not brought, whether it's for procedural reasons or otherwise, that's it. The files are sealed, and a prosecutor would never, ever talk about it. And I was very critical of some of these cases against Donald Trump. I thought the Alvin Bragg and Letitia James cases in New York were absolute nonsense. The Jack Smith cases were not nonsense. They were legitimate cases, and he was hyper-aggressive. I think he made some missteps. But at the end of the day, he had legitimate cases. And there's no telling, had Donald Trump not been elected or reelected in 2024, it's very possible he would have been convicted on one or both of those prosecutions.
And I think that also answers why they released all this stuff on New Year's Eve.
Exactly.
They belatedly realized exactly what you were saying. Like, oh, man, maybe we should not have done this. Okay, I got to ask about this longtime ally, President Trump, Lauren Boebert, slamming his first veto, a veto on a non-controversial bill that I'm a fairly astute watcher of the legislative branch, wasn't even aware it passed. But it would pass with unanimous support to fund a Colorado water project. What Boebert said is this: I must have missed the rally where he stood in Colorado and promised to personally derail critical water infrastructure projects. My bad. I thought the campaign was about lowering costs and cutting red tape. She goes on to say, quote, I sincerely hope this veto has nothing to do with political retaliation for calling out corruption and demanding accountability. Now, Boebert was one of the 4 Republicans who were instrumental in enforcing the Epstein vote. There's also the Tina Peters elements of all of this as well with Colorado that are going on. How big a deal is this?
I think it's a pretty big deal, Phil, because even in that quote that you just quoted from Boebert, she underscores what I just said about the problem for Trump and Republicans going into the 2026 elections. He promised so much in the campaign in 2024 that he was going to bring down prices on day one, that he was going to work on inflation, make sure that that was down on day one. And he has, and in fact, everything that he has done the opposite, right? The tariffs have exploded prices. His mass immigration, criminal, divisive, cruel raids have exploded prices. And he is now showing the country vividly something that Vice President Kamala Harris talked about during the campaign too, which is when he gets into office, he's not going to be focused on families' bottom lines. He's not going to be focused on helping middle-class voters make ends meet. He's going to be focused on his enemies list. And because Colorado has been one of these blue states that has pissed him off, and I think, Ms. Boebert is exactly right. This is about vindictiveness. I do think it's about her. I think it's about all of the Democrats that are in Colorado, because there are other things as well that he is taking away from Colorado, transportation grants, interior grants. So I think this is going to be yet another check mark that Democrats can use in their messaging.
Yeah, it's funny because I think whether you like Trump or not, he has done some truly astounding things in his creation of his political career coming out of nowhere back in 2016. And yet, once he's elected, he seems to act so radically and so emotionally. And so I know a lot of his supporters like to say he's always a few steps ahead and he's playing 3D or 4D chess or whatnot. But I have to think Congress will override his veto. So rather than just take credit for it and kind of, have it as a layup, he picks this fight that he's going to lose ultimately. So I can't help but think he just acts really emotionally, and he's not several steps ahead like his backers like to claim.
I mean, the best part is going to be, to your point, they can override the veto. That vote is going to suck for Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, they're going to be like, oh, God, I got to vote against him on this.
I'm not so sure that they will override it, especially because of that. But we all know that Donald Trump's most important thing is his ego. And that's the problem.
Okay, I want to ask about Gavin Newsom. California Governor Gavin Newsom responding to President Trump's announcement yesterday that he's withdrawing the National Guard from L.A., Chicago, and Portland, posting, quote, "We won in court and forced him to," Trump's rambling here is the political version of, "You can't fire me, I quit." You have had we talked about this last time you were on, and have a very kind of astute and nuanced view of how these deployments were playing out. But the overriding kind of Newsom taunt here, how does that thread into that?
It's a shame, because as a native New Yorker, I saw for 20 years after the September 11th attacks, we had National Guardsmen posted in Penn Station, at the Midtown Tunnel, and it was completely non-controversial, right? The president, the governor, the mayors, both different parties, all agreed. And so the fact that now, 25 years later, Donald Trump has made this so contentious and has forced the fact that he was essentially shot down in his decisions to deploy the Guard, it's going to make it so much more difficult for future presidents to make this argument that that's a legitimate use of the military, because now the Supreme Court itself has said Donald Trump lacked the basis for doing this.
Yeah, precedent is set. Thanks to you both. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Phil.
Well, coming up, canines on a mission. We're talking puppies.